You don't get a veto just because you're uncomfortable, Noah, Rachel hissed, one hand gripping her swollen belly, the other pressing a chopping knife against the cutting board with a little too much force. This is my body, my labor, my pain. I get the final say. And I'm just what? An accessory? I fired back, the words sharper than I intended. You act like I'm not part of this child's life just because I'm not carrying him. She dropped the knife. The clatter echoed through the small kitchen, bouncing off our white tile backsplash and the silence we'd been collecting for weeks. I'm the one who's exhausted, bloated, throwing up every other day, while you sit there skimming baby name books like it's a crossword puzzle. She jabbed a finger toward the table. You want to name the baby? You can carry the next one. Don't, I warned, voice low. Don't reduce me to some bystander in this. Just because you're mad, I won't roll over and clap for every decision you make. Rachel narrowed her eyes, brushing past me to grab a glass from the cupboard, her shoulder brushing mine just hard enough to make a point. You've been difficult since we started this pregnancy. If it's not the baby shower colors, it's the car seat. Or my doctor. I've been trying to be involved. I exploded, trying not to make everything a battle. But you want control, not a partner. You didn't even ask if I liked the name. You just told me. Because you act like everything needs a roundtable discussion, she snapped. Some things, Noah, just are. And I don't want to waste energy debating with someone who's only halfway invested. My mouth fell open. That was the one I couldn't let go. Halfway invested? I repeated, stepping in closer. I'm the one who rearranged my entire work schedule for your appointments. Who gets up at 2 a.m. when you can't sleep? Who hasn't seen a poker night or a peaceful weekend since the second we saw that double pink line? Her jaw clenched, but she didn't back down. You think doing the chores and rubbing my back makes you super dad? She snapped. This isn't about duty, Noah. This is about instinct. I feel what this child needs. And I don't. I stepped back, disgusted. You want to name him without me? Fine. But don't pretend it's about maternal instinct. It's about power. You're not naming a baby. You're planting your flag. That one hit. She flinched, barely, but I caught it. Rachel turned, glass in hand, and walked out of the kitchen without another word. Her steps were steady, confident, like she'd won something, like she didn't need my agreement, only my silence. The kitchen clock ticked. The soft hum of the fridge filled the space she'd left behind. I sat down at the table, staring at the dog-eared name book. My thumb landed on a folded corner I'd marked days ago. Samuel. God has heard. Apparently, I hadn't been. And maybe that was the problem. I kept telling myself we were just having tension, not that something deeper was fracturing. But as I listened to her footsteps fade down the hall, I realized something cold had moved into this house with us. And it wasn't leaving. It happened on a Tuesday. She waited until we were in the living room, half watching some rerun of a cooking show while the rain ticked against the windows like a soft warning. She was folding laundry, her expression oddly serene, like she'd rehearsed this moment down to the breath. I've decided on a name, Rachel said lightly, almost offhand, like she was picking out cereal. I looked up from my phone, blinking. Sorry. She folded a baby onesie, blue, and laid it neatly on the coffee table. Derek. The name landed like a stone in my chest. For a second, I wasn't sure I'd heard her right. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because that was the only reaction my brain could muster. You're joking, I said, my voice dry. She smiled, still not looking at me. No, I've always liked that name. My pulse thudded in my ears. Rachel, we talked about this. You said we'd decide together. She picked up another piece of baby clothing, smoother than before. And we did talk. You just didn't listen. That's when I knew she'd been waiting for this. She wanted this moment, not to share, but to control it. Her posture was too calm, her smile too steady. She wasn't announcing a name. She was delivering a verdict. You're naming him after your ex, I said quietly, the realization curling in my gut. She finally looked at me then, her expression unreadable. It's just a name. No, it's his name. My voice grew sharp. The guy you dated before me. The one I fought in college, remember? That guy. Rachel rolled her eyes and stood up, smoothing her sweatshirt over her bump. You're overreacting. No, I said, rising slowly. I'm reacting exactly as any husband would when he realizes his wife just declared their son will carry another man's name. Her arms crossed, chin tilting up like she was bracing for a storm but refused to be moved by it. You're being ungrateful. I'm carrying this baby. I'm doing the work. I'm the one giving birth. My hands clenched at my sides. So this is how it's going to be? You get to call the shots because you're the one suffering more? I'm not suffering, she snapped. I'm sacrificing. For this family. And you, her voice cracked, then rose again, brittle and sharp. You just want to fight over a name like it's some sports rivalry. I want respect. I shouted. I want to feel like I matter in this equation. Like you see me as the father. Not just some guy financing your solo mission into motherhood. Tears welled in her eyes, but it wasn't guilt. It was performance. Controlled. Timed. She turned away, covering her face with her hand as her shoulders began to shake. You're making me feel like the villain, she sobbed, when all I wanted was a peaceful pregnancy. That was the move. The checkmate. She always knew how to turn my anger into shame, how to make me feel like the aggressor even when she'd drawn first blood. And I, stupidly, painfully, backed down. I sat back on the couch, shoulders heavy. Fine, I muttered, voice drained. If it means that much to you, name him Derek. She didn't respond right away, just sniffled, wiped her face, and walked slowly toward the hallway. When she reached the doorframe, she paused, just long enough to twist the knife. Thank you, she said softly. I knew you'd come around. Then she disappeared down the hall, leaving silence in her wake. But this time, it wasn't relief that followed her exit. It was the certainty of something broken. I stayed there, staring at that folded onesie with the name I couldn't say out loud anymore. Every inch of our apartment suddenly felt smaller, tighter, like the walls had moved in a little more. And under all the confusion, one truth burned clear. That name wasn't an accident. It was a message. I hadn't planned to bring it up. Not that night, and not to Mark. We were downtown, the kind of dive bar with sticky floors and cheap beer and plastic pitchers. A row of TVs above the bar showed a Bulls game neither of us was watching. I was nursing a drink, my second, maybe third, long enough in to loosen the edge, but not so far gone that I couldn't feel the tightness in my chest. Mark had been my roommate back in undergrad. He'd seen me drunk on heartbreak, giddy on first dates, nearly expelled after that brawl behind the fraternity house. He knew me before the neckties, before the mortgage. And Rachel, he knew her, too. You look like hell, Mark said, giving me a sidelong glance over his pint. Thanks, I muttered, dragging my finger through the condensation on the table. She's still making you sleep on the emotional couch? Or has she finally given up and just built you one out of throw pillows? I almost smiled. Almost. We're talking less, I said, then took a sip. Arguing more. Mark nodded, leaned back. That's marriage, man. One long conversation about who's more tired. I stared at the bottom of my glass. She named the baby. That got his attention. I thought you two were still deciding. Apparently not, I said flatly. She just dropped it one day like it was already settled. Derek. Mark went still. It was so sudden I noticed it before I realized what it meant. He was mid-laugh, his hand raised with the beer, and then, frozen. His eyes locked on mine like I'd just said a curse word in church. Wait, he said slowly, lowering his glass. Did you say, Derek? Yeah. Silence. The bar buzzed around us, but all I could hear was the soft clang of someone dropping a glass across the room and the pounding in my ears. Mark leaned in slightly, voice low now. Rachel's ex. I didn't answer. I couldn't. Not yet. Mark shook his head, almost to himself. That Derek? The guy you clocked during senior year? Over her. I finished quietly. He exhaled hard. Jesus, Noah. I stared at the table, my breath catching. A memory surfaced, uninvited and cruel. Rachel in college, younger but not sweeter, laughing a little too loud at another guy's joke. Me, younger too, dumber, walking into a party and seeing them standing too close. Derek, his hand on her waist. The fight that followed. The blood on my shirt. It didn't mean anything, she'd said back then. He was nobody. But now, she'd named our child after him. Mark leaned forward, voice sharp now. You really think that's just a coincidence? I didn't respond. I couldn't even blink. My mind was racing. Every argument, every dismissive look, the smug way she said his name. You okay? He asked, softer this time. I nodded slowly, but the lie tasted bitter. I wasn't okay. Something had cracked wide open, and the cold was rushing in. Mark took a sip, eyes still on me. Man, I don't want to start a storm here, but you might want to look deeper. That name choice. That's not random. I know, I said finally. The words came out hollow. My stomach twisted as my brain began assembling pieces I didn't want to see connected. I thought of Rachel's insistence, her defensiveness, the way she cried when I pushed back, not with heartbreak, but with weaponized tears. I need to ask her again, I murmured. Mark just gave me a look, one I couldn't shake. A storm had started inside me, and I had no idea where it would lead. I didn't go straight home after the bar. I drove around for almost an hour, aimlessly circling blocks in silence, the streetlights flickering off the windshield like quiet accusations. The city looked blurred through my window, foggy, half-formed, like my thoughts. I kept hearing it in Mark's voice. You really think that's just a coincidence? By the time I parked in front of our building, I was sure of only one thing. I needed to hear her say it. Out loud. With no wiggle room. No smiles. No theatrics. Just the truth. I walked in to find Rachel curled up on the couch, a blanket over her legs, a mug in her hands. She was watching some home renovation show, but the volume was so low it was practically silent. She looked up as I stepped inside. Hey, you're late. I didn't respond. Just hung up my coat and walked into the room, not sitting. She noticed the difference instantly. My posture, the tension. Her smile faltered. I took a breath. I need to ask you something. She blinked. Okay. I stood by the fireplace, keeping my voice even. The name. Derek. That's your ex's name, isn't it? She stared at me. Too long. Just long enough to say everything. Then she gave a small, breathy laugh and shook her head. Noah, seriously? You're really dragging up college right now? Answer me. Her smile faded. Her fingers tightened around the mug. It's a common name. Cut the games, Rachel. She looked away. I liked the sound of it. You could have picked any name. Any name in the world. And you picked that one. The guy I fought. The one you told me meant nothing. Her jaw twitched, but her voice stayed calm. You're being paranoid. I stepped forward. Tell me it's not his name. Tell me this isn't some twisted way to what? Get back at me? Relive something? Noah, she snapped, her voice breaking now. You're imagining things. You always do this. You twist everything. I didn't move. I didn't flinch. You lied, Rachel. Her eyes welled up. Why are you attacking me? Because you're hiding something. I'm pregnant, she screamed, tears spilling now, mascara streaking down her cheek. Do you have any idea what it's like carrying this child and being accused like I'm some villain? I shook my head slowly. I'm not accusing. I'm asking. And you're avoiding. She stood, trembling. You're stressed. You've been under pressure at work. You're projecting. That's all this is. I stared at her, heart pounding. You say I'm imagining things, but you still haven't said the words. She went silent. And then, voice barely audible, she whispered, I didn't think you'd remember his name. That silence. It shattered something in me. I turned away, needing distance, because if I looked at her much longer, I wasn't sure what I'd say. She started crying harder now, loud sobs echoing in the quiet room. I didn't do it to hurt you, she wailed. It wasn't planned. It just came to me and felt right. I turned back slowly, my voice cold. No, it came to you because you never let go of him. She covered her face with her hands, collapsing into the couch. Please stop. Please don't do this tonight. But we were already here, already past the point of retreat. I stood there, staring at the woman I married, the one I thought I understood. And in that moment, all I saw was a stranger who couldn't even say the name without lying first. The next morning, I sat at the kitchen table, staring into my coffee until it went cold. Rachel hadn't said a word since last night's blowout. Not a note, not a text. Just silence, punctuated by muffled sobs behind the bedroom door. I didn't chase her this time. Instead, I opened my laptop and started digging. It didn't take long. A few mutual acquaintances, a couple old contacts, and suddenly Derek wasn't just a name from my past. He was real again, living out in the suburbs with a wife, a mortgage, and a face I hadn't seen in over a decade. That face still made my knuckles itch. I didn't text him, didn't give him the chance to dodge. I just drove. His neighborhood was painfully domestic. Wind chimes, Halloween wreaths still hanging in November. Kids' bikes on the lawn. I sat in my car for 10 minutes before I could bring myself to get out. My heartbeat wasn't steady. It was erratic, like my body was trying to warn me, don't open this door. But I walked up anyway and knocked twice. Derek answered, and time didn't move. He looked almost the same, just slightly heavier, a little more tired. Still had that too-practiced smirk he used in college, the kind that made every girl lean in a little closer. "Noah," he said, blinking hard. "Wow, been a minute." I didn't smile. "We need to talk." He hesitated, stepping halfway out onto the porch. "Is everything okay?" I stared at him. "You tell me." His smirk faltered. "I want the truth," I said. "Did you and Rachel?" I stopped myself. My jaw locked. "Have you had any contact since college?" Derek's eyes darted away. That was the first crack. "Look, man, that was ages ago. Don't give me the time excuse," I snapped. "Did something happen?" He swallowed hard. "No. I mean, we bumped into each other a few times, but nothing serious." That answer wasn't clean enough. It had static around the edges. "You're sweating," I said, folding my arms. He tried to laugh, failed. "It's just warm out. It's November." He opened his mouth, just as a voice rang out from inside the house. "Who's at the door?" A woman's voice. Sharp. On edge. And then she appeared. Susan. His wife, I assumed. Blonde, mid-30s, hair in a messy bun and fury already lighting up her face. "Who is this?" she barked, looking me up and down. Derek turned, flustered. "It's no one. Just an old, no one," she snapped. "Is this about her?" I froze. Susan stepped onto the porch, glaring at him. "I knew it. I knew you were cheating. You've been hiding messages, acting weird." "Susan, stop." Derek tried, but she was already over the cliff. "Who is she, huh? Who is the woman you're risking everything for?" She turned to me. "Is he cheating on me with your wife?" My throat went dry. He didn't deny it. He didn't say a single word. That silence was a confession. I stared at him, cold spreading through my chest like spilled gasoline. "You really did it," I muttered. "You slept with her." Derek ran his hand over his face, eyes wide now. It wasn't supposed to be like that." Susan's face crumbled. She let out a breath like a balloon deflating. "You unbelievable coward." She spun on her heel and stormed back inside. The door slammed so hard the porch shook. Derek leaned against the frame like he'd just been shot. I didn't say anything else. Didn't have to. I turned, walked back to my car, and sat in the driver's seat for what felt like hours. Everything I had feared, everything I tried to rationalize, it was all real. And the worst part? Rachel hadn't just betrayed me. She'd done it knowing I would still be the one left to clean it up. By the time I walked through the front door, the sky was already shifting toward dusk. Chicago's cold had crept under my coat, but I wasn't shivering. I was numb. Rachel must have been pacing, waiting, because the moment she heard the latch click, she appeared at the end of the hallway like she'd been summoned by a silent alarm. Her eyes were red-rimmed, cheeks pale. She opened her mouth, but I raised a hand. "Don't." She froze, arms wrapping around herself. I didn't know you were going to find out." I said flatly. "No, you were hoping I wouldn't." Her chin quivered. "Let me explain." "No," I snapped. "This is not one of your little stage plays, Rachel. You don't get to cry on cue and expect the audience to forget the scene before." The living room was dead quiet. The same space where we had once mapped out paint colors for the nursery. Now it felt like a courtroom. And I wasn't wearing the robe. I was wearing the cuffs. "You named our child after a man you were still seeing," I said, stepping closer. "You looked me in the eye and told me it was coincidence. And then you let me carry the guilt for asking the question." Rachel's voice cracked. "I made a mistake," I laughed. Cold. Hollow. "Mistake?" "No. A mistake is dropping a plate. You made a choice." She came toward me, her voice rising, breaking. "Noah, please, don't do this. We're so close. The baby's almost here. We can get through this." I panicked. I didn't know how to stop it once it started. "So you lied your way forward. I didn't want to lose you." "Too late." She staggered back like I'd struck her, falling onto the armrest of the couch. The baby kicked. She winced, then clutched her side. "I'm scared, Noah," she whispered. "I don't want to raise him alone." I walked past her, into the kitchen, poured water I didn't drink, let the faucet run too long. Then, finally, I turned around. "We're doing a paternity test," I said, the words like iron. She flinched. "What?" "When he's born. I'm not raising someone else's son without knowing the truth." Tears welled up again, fast, but I didn't flinch this time. "Noah, please," she reached for me, desperate. "I'll let you name him. Anything you want. I'll never talk to Derek again." I don't even know if he is mine. Rachel. That stopped her. Everything in her face collapsed in an instant. She sank onto the couch, whispering into her hands, I don't know either. The room tilted. The quiet that followed wasn't a pause. It was judgment. A verdict sealed in silence. She sobbed. He said it was only once. I thought it didn't matter. I thought it would all just go away. And you let me build a nursery with that lie hanging over our heads. I was trying to protect us. No. I shook my head slowly. You were protecting you. She looked up at me then, mascara streaking down her face. What happens now? I looked around at the house I once loved. The books we stacked. The framed ultrasound on the wall. The future we painted like it was certain. And then I looked at her. I wait, I said quietly. For the test. She opened her mouth again, but this time I didn't let her speak. I walked out of the room, not slamming the door, just closing it like the final page of a chapter too painful to reread. The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and blooming dread. It had been 26 hours of labor. I'd barely spoken 10 words since we arrived, and Rachel hadn't tried to force more out of me. Not this time. She was pale, sweating, gripping the edge of the bed like the world was slipping from under her. Nurses bustled around us, adjusting monitors, offering encouragement. The walls were soft blue, almost soothing, like they were trying to pretend what was happening here wasn't tearing something apart. Then the cry came. High, shrill, piercing. A boy. The doctor announced it like a ceremony. I heard the words, but it felt like I was underwater. I stood there, rooted to the floor, watching a nurse clean the baby's face. His hands were so small they didn't seem real. 10 fingers, 10 toes. A perfect little stranger. Rachel sobbed into her pillow. Not from pain anymore, something deeper. The kind of crying that no epidural could touch. The nurse looked at me, smiling politely. Would you like to hold him? My feet didn't move. Eventually, I took a step forward and reached out. He was light, warm, alive, and I had no idea who he belonged to. I tried to feel something, joy, awe, hope, but there was a wall between us. A glass wall I couldn't break, built brick by brick from everything I now knew. The baby yawned. His eyes fluttered. He didn't cry again. He was calm. I hated that I couldn't be. A nurse came in with a clipboard, clearing her throat. Mr. Hill, we'll need a quick cheek swab when you're ready. For the paternity panel. Rachel stirred on the bed, voice raw. Can't we wait a day? No, I said flatly. We do it now. The nurse nodded, then moved gently between us, swabbing the inside of the baby's cheek and sealing the sample in a labeled tube. She handed me a second swab. For you. I didn't hesitate. A swipe. A seal. A signature. That was it. Rachel turned her face to the wall. She didn't speak. She didn't cry again. When they took the baby for weighing and testing, I followed into the hallway. They handed me a small blue hat and the blanket he'd been wrapped in. Then someone gave me the stuffed lion I'd brought in from the car hours earlier, a gift I bought months ago, back when I still believed. I sat on a waiting bench near the vending machines. The lion in my lap. My hands trembled. I don't know how long I stayed there. Long enough for families to walk past me laughing. Long enough for a janitor to mop the same patch of floor twice. Long enough for Rachel to be wheeled to recovery without asking where I'd gone. I stared at the lion, its stitched eyes staring back like they had answers I didn't. What if he's not mine? What if he is? I was terrified of both. And somewhere beneath it all, buried in the noise and exhaustion, a voice kept whispering the thing I didn't want to face. No matter what the test said, something had already been lost. A week passed in limbo. Rachel came home first. I stayed one more night at my brother's place before walking back into the apartment we both once called ours. The nursery was ready, painted soft gray, with tiny lion decals on the walls. I avoided going in. I didn't want to hear the creak of the rocking chair I'd assembled with quiet hope. We barely spoke, except for updates. Feedings. Diapers. Appointments. Her voice stayed low. Mine stayed lower. Then one morning, the email came. I saw it in my inbox. Subject line clinical and cold. Paternity report. Results available. I froze. Rachel must have heard the vibration from the kitchen because she rushed into the living room just as I clicked the link. Her face was already shifting, desperate, hopeful, rehearsed. Is it here? She asked, clutching her phone like a lifeline. I didn't answer. My eyes were scanning the PDF, fast. Paternity probability, 99. 9% Rachel let out a sound between a gasp and a laugh. See? Noah, it's fine, it's okay. It's all okay now. But I wasn't smiling. I wasn't moving. My eyes had stopped, locked on something that made the air suck straight out of my lungs. The report didn't have my legal name, Noah Hill. It listed Nathaniel King. And the address? It wasn't ours. It was one I'd never lived at. I didn't even recognize the zip code. Rachel's voice broke through the fog. It says you're the father. That's what matters. I turned my head slowly. You submitted this? I asked, voice tight. What? Her smile faltered. This isn't mine, I said, pointing at the header. This isn't my name. And this isn't our address. Her lips parted. Her eyes blinked fast, like she was trying to process how quickly the ground was shifting under her feet. I don't know. Maybe it's a clerical error? No, I said coldly. This is someone else's result. Rachel stepped back, hand clutching her shirt. It must have gotten mixed up. Noah, please, let's just call the clinic. They can explain. I stood up slowly, heart thudding like a war drum. Who submitted the samples? I did, but I used your ID and what? My voice rose. You faked it again? You submitted someone else's name? You tried to bury the truth one more time. Rachel crumbled. I didn't know what else to do. I thought maybe if you saw 9%, we could move on. You thought if you gave me the illusion of truth, I'd stop asking questions. She covered her face. I was scared. You should be, I said, because now I'm done asking. She started crying again, but this time, something was different. There was panic. Real, raw panic. I picked up my coat and keys, heart numb. I'm going to the clinic, I said without looking at her. I want the real results. The ones with my name. Her voice cracked behind me. Noah, please, don't do this. We can just let it go, but I was already halfway to the door. And for the first time since this started, I didn't feel doubt. I felt fury. The kind that doesn't yell anymore, just burns. The drive to the clinic was dead silent. No music, no news. Just the hum of the tires and the echo of every moment that had led me here. My fingers drummed the steering wheel at stoplights, but my heart was oddly still. I'd already said goodbye to hope. Now I just needed proof. At the clinic front desk, I asked for the director. 30 minutes later, I was sitting across from a thin man in a gray sweater vest who adjusted his glasses twice before speaking. Yes, Mr. Hill. We ran the test under the information provided, Nathaniel King. However, that ID didn't match the father listed on the birth certificate. So you flagged it. We did. And we ran a second sample. This time, he looked over his glasses, under your actual name. He slid a white envelope across the desk. I stared at it. My name printed on it. My address. No spelling errors. No shadows. This is the official result. Yes. Sealed? He nodded. Completely. I tucked it into my jacket without opening it. Not here. Not under fluorescent lights. The truth deserved silence. And she needed to hear it with me standing in the room. Back at the apartment, Rachel was in the rocker, holding the baby like a shield. She looked up when the door opened. Eyes red, lips tight. You went, she said softly. I didn't answer. I took the envelope out of my coat and placed it on the coffee table between us like a bomb. She looked at it, then at me. Noah, she whispered. Can we just talk? This is the talk. She didn't move. I sat on the edge of the couch and opened the envelope. No theatrics, just a tear along the seal. A quiet breath. Then I pulled out the page and read. Paternity probability, 0%. The words echoed louder than any scream could have. Rachel's hand flew to her mouth. The baby stirred but didn't cry. I watched her, calmly, as the world inside her crumbled. She let out a sound, half sob, half gasp, and dropped her gaze. I didn't know. I didn't blink. You didn't care? That's worse. I thought he was yours, she whispered. Until he wasn't. And then you thought I'd never find out. She broke then, truly broke. Her body folded over the baby, sobbing into his blanket, as if her apology could be woven into the fibers of the child's clothes. I was scared, she said through tears. I didn't want to be alone. I didn't want to ruin everything. You ruined it the moment you gave him a name you knew would gut me. I didn't mean to. Yes, you did. I stood. She looked up at me, hair matted to her cheeks, breathing in gasps. What happens now? I stared down at her, at the woman who once promised me forever. Now she was just someone I used to know, holding someone I never really did. I'm going to talk to a lawyer, I said simply. Her arms tightened around the child. You're really leaving? She whispered. I'm not the one who left, I said. You just did it quietly. She didn't argue. Couldn't. As I walked toward the door, she called after me, not with anger, but with that hollow desperation of someone who finally sees what they've done too late. Noah, please, he's still just a baby. I paused, hand on the doorknob, then turned slightly, eyes on the floor. He's your baby, Rachel. And I walked out. The hallway felt like air for the first time in weeks. Cold, honest air. Downstairs, I got into my car and just sat there, hands on the wheel. I wasn't sure what came next, but I knew what was over, and that was more clarity than I'd had in months. The courthouse smelled like paper and old grudges. I wore a navy suit that no longer felt like it belonged to a husband, just a man ready to end a chapter. Rachel sat 2 benches over, dressed in beige, small and tired. She didn't look at me. She didn't need to. The judgment was simple, clean. Papers passed back and forth. A notary's stamp. A digital beep on the clerk's laptop. Just like that, we were undone. I signed the last page, handed it over, and stood. No words. No final glances. Just the soft closing of a door as I left the courtroom, divorced. Outside, the cold hit hard. Wind rushing through the concrete canyons of downtown. I didn't shield myself from it. I let it cut. Let it sting. I needed to feel it, every inch of what I'd survived. Across the plaza, I saw a familiar figure leaning against a pillar. Susan. Her own divorce had finalized last week. She'd sent me a short message. Done. Feels like waking up from surgery. Now here she was, arms crossed, looking up at the sky like it might offer an answer. I walked over slowly. She turned her head, offered a nod. So, paperwork done? Signed and sealed, I said. No more Rachel Hill. Susan let out a short, breathless laugh. And no more Derek King. We stood in silence for a moment. Not mourning, just breathing. She looked at me. You ever think about how much time we lose pretending things are fine? Every day. Think you'll ever trust again? I shrugged. I'm still learning to trust myself. Susan nodded. That's a start. We didn't make plans. We didn't hug. We just shared a stillness, then drifted in separate directions. 2 people no longer tethered to the same storm. Rachel, meanwhile, moved in with her sister. A duplex on the west side with flaking paint and a sagging porch swing. She'd post filtered pictures of the baby, smiling, giggling, but the backgrounds always told a quieter story. Clutter, dim light, the silence of starting over with less than you expected. I didn't stalk her, but sometimes I saw glimpses. She struggled. Derek was gone, skipped town the moment his name hit divorce court. No calls, no checks, just vanished, like he never existed. And Rachel? She learned what it meant to name a child after a ghost. 6 months later, spring returned to Chicago with shy warmth and scattered blossoms. The kind of day that tries to convince you winter never really happened. I didn't plan to see her. It just happened. I was cutting through the park on my walk home, something I'd started doing lately, just to keep my mind clear, when I spotted her on a bench near the duck pond. Rachel. She looked older. Not by years, but by gravity. Her shoulders hunched inward, hair pulled back without care. Her eyes, those sharp, calculating eyes, had dulled into something distant. The baby, now a bit bigger, sat in her lap, wrapped in a puffy jacket, clutching a teething ring like it was a compass. She didn't notice me until I was almost past. Then she blinked. Noah. I stopped. There was no anger in her voice. No edge. Just exhaustion. She looked like someone still waking up from a dream she didn't remember agreeing to have. I didn't expect to see you, she said, shifting the baby in her arms. I gave a soft nod. Didn't expect to be seen. She hesitated, then added, he's growing fast. I looked at the child, brown eyes, round cheeks, a quiet curiosity. I wondered who his real father was. Wondered if he'd ever know. But that wasn't mine to chase anymore. Does he know? I asked quietly. She shook her head. No. And Derek's vanished. No support. No texts. Nothing. I could hear the resentment coiled beneath her words. The bitterness she now tasted daily. Life got real small, she added. Fast. I didn't answer. There wasn't much to say. She looked down at the boy. He's good, though. He doesn't know what he was born into. I think that's mercy. I crouched a little, met the boy's eyes. He blinked, then smiled. A real smile. No agenda. No memory. I said softly. I'm sorry for the child who is now being raised without a father because of the mother's dissolute life. Rachel flinched, but didn't deny it. She knew it was true. I stood. She looked up at me, and for the first time, there was no manipulation left. Just someone sitting in the wreckage of her own choices, trying to keep a child warm with the tattered blanket of regret. You were a good man, Noah, she said, barely above a whisper. I hope someone sees that next time. I didn't smile. I didn't look back. I just walked away, the gravel crunching under my steps, the spring air brushing past like a clean breath. Behind me, the park continued its quiet hum. Birds chirped. Children laughed. Life moved on. And so did I. Because in the end, truth always arrives. Sometimes in an envelope, sometimes in silence, but always with a cost.
I hope today's story offered you a moment of deep reflection and perhaps a bit of clarity for your own journey. If you felt a connection to our character's struggle and triumphs, or if you simply enjoy the soulful narrative we share here on Versatile, please take a second to hit the like button and subscribe. Your support is the heartbeat of this channel. It is the fuel that keeps me searching for the most authentic, raw, and meaningful slices of life to bring to your screen. By joining us, you are not just watching a video, you are becoming part of a community that values truth and resilience. In the world of love and commitment, a partner betrayal feels like a sudden earthquake. In an instant, the foundation of trust you spend years, perhaps decades, building is shattered into dust. The pain is real, and the silence that follows can be deafening. But I want you to remember this. Sometimes we are forced to walk through the road, not to mourn what was lost, but to realize that true happiness can never be found by clinging to someone who was never brave enough to be honest with you. The deep risk of a broken relationship often hides a path to your true self. A partner deception is a reflection of their character, not a definition of your worth. Never let their shadow dim your light. Instead, see their existence as a signal from universe, a loud, clear message that you have outgrown a space that was too small for your soul. When the protagonist of our story finally steps onto his new path, it isn't just the swiftest form of revenge. It is something much more powerful, absolute, unfiltered freedom. Always remember, the goal of living a toxic marriage isn't necessarily to rush into the arms of someone new. The real victory is finding courage to be alone, to heal, and to finally find yourself again. Because once you are whole on your own, no one can ever take your happiness away from you. Thank you for lending me your ear, your time today. Be kind to yourself, stay strong, and I will see you in the next story, only on Versatile.